first guy. The second one had wet-looking hair combed in a side part. So I figured the first guy would be coming up behind me. They had wanted me to notice the second one. That was the strategy. Distract, induce panic, come at me from both sides. I'd been out of the military for only a week. Their little strategy wasn't going to work. The park was carved up into little walkways. I went off the footpath and cut across the lawn. Using peripheral vision, I clocked Ratface coming off the street and passing the kiosk. He and his leather jacket buddy were moving in sync, wedging me in. Dense evergreens crowded the path where it sunk down in a dip a dozen yards away. The dip would do. I figured less than 20 seconds casual walking. Laurel bushes blocked out the light. The dip was an intersection. A spiderweb of narrow walkways converged in its hollow. But the two guys were gone. I stayed there for a couple of minutes to see if they would come. Maybe they were waiting me out. But nobody waits more than a minute. A minute's a long time if you're waiting. Young thugs in particular are impatient, nervous, and jumpy. You can always wait them out. The two guys didn't show. I exited the park and crossed over to the sidewalk. The town center was old and busy, the kind of old that gets preserved by committee. Busy with regular people doing regular things that hadn't changed all that much in a couple 100 years. 12 hours on the train made me want to stretch out, to walk, to loosen the hips and the knees and the ankles. But first I wanted to stop by the town hall, see if I could find any record of my mother's family. She had been French and spent her summers in Alencourt. I was curious about that side of my family because, as far as I knew, my mother hadn't ever come back to France after moving to the United States. The center of town was a big old medieval square with an ancient church right in the middle of it. The town hall was on the edge of the square. I told the old mustachioed guy at reception what I was looking for, and he pointed across the square. He had to push his glasses down off his forehead to look at me. Blue eyes magnified and focused. He said that records were kept in the library, which was on the other side of the church. The old guy looked at his watch and shook his head. Chances were the library was already closed for lunch. But it wasn't quite closed. I got in the door. A young woman wearing a floral print dress was turning over the sign at the front desk from open to closed. I made it to the counter a split second before the sign flipped and put my hand next to it, which made her look up. I gave a winning American smile. The librarian was in her 20s, strawberry blonde hair, long nose, high cheekbones, slim. I said, "You're closing for lunch?"
"Yes, monsieur."
"Can I bother you for half a minute?" I smiled.
"You can bother me for half a minute?"
She smiled back. So I told her about my mother and how she had spent summers with family in town. I asked the librarian where I could look if I wanted to find traces that her family might have left.
"Your family?"
"Excuse me?"
"You said you wanted to find traces of your mother's family, but it's your family as well."
Which was true, and maybe a better way of putting it. The librarian asked me to write down my mother's name and date of birth. She told me to stop by in the afternoon, say 5. She said she'd see what she could dig up, but there were no guarantees. Some traces remained over time, others got wiped away. Depended on a lot of things. I wrote the name down, Delphine Vaugeois, and the date of birth. Then I thanked the librarian and walked out. 5 hours. Enough time to have lunch, check out the town, take a walk, stop by the library, and then get the late train out. Maybe there was a sleeper. I was headed south, Spain or Portugal, and the beach. Figured I'd stay there for a month or a year or however long it took to get bored of the beach. For the moment, I was thinking about food and more coffee. Otherwise, I felt good. Off the church square, I turned into a series of narrow, crowded streets. The old town. Shoppers jostled in line for the butcher or the baker. The scent of fresh bread and coffee had settled. I squeezed through a knot of people outside the bakery and felt a push from behind. Turned to look. It was the second guy, with the leather jacket.